Back in the 1830s, the richest woman in New Orleans was Delphine LaLaurie. She was part of a very powerful family called the McCartys. They had money, they had land, and they had power. Delphine was beautiful. She wore the most expensive clothes. She lived in the biggest house. Everyone in the city wanted to be her friend. She threw the best parties, and when she walked into a room, everyone stopped to look at her. She lived at 1140 Royal Street with her husband, a doctor named Louis LaLaurie. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, but people started to notice small things that felt wrong. Delphine had slaves to take care of her house. In those days, that was normal in the South, but her slaves looked different from the ones in other houses. They were very thin. Their clothes were dirty and torn. They always looked like they were waiting for something bad to happen. When people asked Delphine about them, she would just give them a sweet look. She would say she was a very kind boss. Some of her friends even said she was too nice to them. But the neighbors knew better. They heard things coming from that house when the sun went down. The first time people really got scared was when they saw a little girl named Leah. Leah was only about 12 years old. One day, a neighbor was looking out their window and saw something horrible. Delphine was chasing the little girl across the balcony. Delphine had a whip in her hand. Her face wasn't sweet anymore. It looked like a demon's face. The little girl was crying and running for her life. She ran all the way to the edge of the roof. She looked back at Delphine, and she was so scared that she didn't even think. She just jumped. She fell all the way down to the hard stone floor of the courtyard. She didn't survive. After that, the police had to come. They checked the house and told Delphine she was being too mean. They made her pay some money, and they took her slaves away to be sold to someone else. Everyone thought the nightmare was over. But Delphine was a very clever woman. She had her friends buy the slaves back for her in secret. She brought them all back into the house through the back door. She locked the gates. She shut the windows, and the house went quiet again. For a little while on the 10th of April, 1834, the city woke up to smoke. A massive fire started in the kitchen of the LaLaurie Mansion. Neighbors ran to help put out the flames. When they got into the kitchen, they found the cook chained to the stove. She was an old woman, and she was crying. She said she started the fire on purpose. She wanted to end her own life because she couldn't take the pain anymore. But then she told the men something that made their blood run cold. She told them to go to the attic. She said that was where the real secrets were hidden. Delphine tried to stop them. She stood in their way and screamed that it was her house. She told them they had no right to go upstairs, but the men could smell something coming from the top floor, something that smelled like a graveyard. They pushed past her and ran up the stairs. They reached the door to the attic. It was locked with heavy chains. They had to use axes to break it open. When the door finally fell, the men stopped breathing. Some of them had to run back outside because they were going to be sick. What they saw was much worse than a fire. Inside that dark, hot room, they found 7 people. They were chained to the walls and floors. Some were in cages so small they couldn't even stand up. They hadn't seen the sun in months, maybe even years. But it wasn't just that they were prisoners. It was what Delphine had done to them. People say she had performed experiments on them. They say she had changed their bodies in ways that are too scary to describe. Some people were missing skin. Others had their bones broken and put back together in the wrong way. The news spread through New Orleans in minutes. A huge crowd of thousands of people gathered outside the house. They were angry. They were shouting for Delphine to come out. They wanted her to pay for what she did. They broke into the house and started destroying everything. They smashed the gold mirrors. They tore the silk dresses. They wanted to tear the whole house down to the ground. But while the crowd was busy, a carriage sped away from the back of the house. Delphine was inside. She escaped. She left the city and was never seen again. Some people say she went to France and died there years later. But the people she hurt were still there, and their spirits never left. For almost 200 years, the house has been haunted. After Delphine left, new people tried to live there. But no one could stay for long. One man was found dead in his room in 1894. His room was a mess, but nothing was stolen. His friends said the man told him there was a demon in the house that was going to kill him. Later, the house became a school for girls. The young girls would come to their teachers with tears in their eyes. They would show them scratches and bruises on their arms. They said a woman in a long dress did it to them, even though there were no other women in the room. People who walk past the house today say they hear chains dragging on the floor. Tour guides say they have been pushed by invisible hands. One guide was telling the story of the little girl, Leia, when the street lights above the house suddenly started to blink. When she said the name again, the lights went out completely, leaving everyone in the dark. A medium once visited the house and said she felt a weight of sadness so heavy she couldn't breathe. She saw the ghosts of children who were still scared of that woman. The LaLaurie Mansion is still there today. It is a private home now. You can't go inside, and you probably wouldn't want to if you could. It is a beautiful building, but it has a very dark heart. It reminds us that sometimes the real monsters are the ones who look like us. So, if you ever find yourself in the French Quarter and you walk past the corner of Royal Street, don't stop, don't look at the attic windows, and don't listen for the sound of chains, because once you hear them, you might never be able to forget them. Stay safe out there, and keep your doors locked tonight.